Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. So, today we are going to be talking about an incredibly hard and offensive topic, which of course makes me just tickled pink. We are going to be talking about breaking myths and dealing with appropriation, specifically cultural appropriation. And we have Isabel Frank here to talk with us. Hello, my darling. How are you today?
Oh, good, great. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Can you introduce yourself to the viewers and everyone watching on replay? What you do, what you're about, how fabulous you are, how you flip your hair, and it's always so graceful. I'm a little jealous about that with the short hair, but that's another story. What's up, hon?
You're so funny. My name's Isabel. I just changed my title actually. So empowerment intuitive coach. I've always been a spiritual intuition coach. So I basically work with people on diving deep, following their intuition guts, learning how to trust themselves as we're talking about myths today and all these different things because of society's kind of taught us not to trust ourselves and not to lean into our intuition. So I kind of hold that space to guide us back, guide you through the healing process and help you to see yourself.
I love that. I love that. And you're right. Like a big part of like myths and appropriation is that I feel like it leans on people's ignorance and trust in outside information instead of being like, does this feel right to me? Do I identify with this even?
Yeah.
And that is definitely a big hurdle, is the amount of misinformation in our industry now. Like I talked recently about this with a colleague. Since the pandemic, there is so many newbies out there who don't have the training that we do, who don't have that commitment to information research and stuff. And so there is now, since the pandemic, more misinformation and myths than there was before, and more people spreading them. Do you see that too, or is that like a lot
100%.
of Twin Cities thing?
No, actually, I have a really big TikTok following. I'm on TikTok. And so speaking of social media, I think social media is actually in general just fed into that, it's fed into that.
Yes.
And they look at what's sellable, right? Like this is sellable. So if I
Mhm.
say certain statements, if I project certain things, then that's what's going to sell versus the truth is like we know you have to do the work. You have to do the shadow work. You have to lean into things. You have to lean into your feelings where, yeah, definitely the big thing out there right now are the young ones that are teaching a different message, that are showing it in a different way. And it's kind of sad because I feel like those that have been on this journey for a really long time are kind of getting pushed back.
I almost feel like it's fatigue. It's like we're being pushed against these myths and misinformation so much, and then we correct them in our own field because we actually like our industry, and it becomes this like, I'm tired. Like, I'm tired of being met with it in my face. And I think, like you mentioned, TikTok. I love TikTok. This will be chopped up into little pieces on TikTok later. And twin flames.
Oh
And
God,
I
tell me more.
cannot tell you how often I have
Mm.
scrolled to people doing general readings. I would say every day. I'm not exaggerating. Every day, you scroll on TikTok, I will see someone. Oh, and of course, it's all airbender over the top motion. And then they will go, now you need to be aware that someone is thinking about you and missing you, and they are going to reach out to you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's always that way. I mean, that's what gets your attention, right? Everybody wants that, does so and so love me? Does this love me? I mean, I
Yeah.
go live and it's like one question, does so and so going to call me? Is so and so love me? Is this my twin flame? Is this my soulmate? And it's like, can we stop focusing on that so much and focus on yourself? Like I told last night, I was like, the more work you do on yourself and the more that you treat yourself in a certain way, then that's what's going to call in the energy of your divine partner. And I'm like, and if you guys really understand twin flames, is that really a dynamic that you want to invite in? Because that's not a healthy relationship for the most part. It can be quite toxic if you guys are not doing your healing work, and it's not necessarily romantic. And the same thing with the usage of soulmate. I'm like, I meet soulmates all day long, every day, because it's anyone you've shared a past life with. It does not mean it's your romantic
Mhm.
counterpart. That is not what that word means. And that
Yes.
has been so switched around. And I feel like
Mhm.
I say this message over and over and over again, where I'm like, it's not about finding your soulmate. It's not about finding your twin flame. I've had a twin flame. I'm not with them for a reason. Like, it's like, okay, I'm not with them for a reason. And it's like, so there's just things like that where we have romanticized, I think overall, we've romanticized spirituality in general. We've made it this
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, it's full of, positive vibes and it's romantic,
Mhm.
this, but it's like, no, like if you actually look at the history of what
Mhm.
spirituality is going back into different, culturals and cultures, you're going to see it's gritty, it's dirty, it's muddy, it's work.
It's messy and it's painful.
Yeah.
Anyone who says it's not, and here's the thing, there's a huge difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Yes.
So, anyone who is like, there is no pain in spirituality if you are aligned with, yeah, yes, there is. Yes, there is. Your soul stubbed their toe 2 lifetimes ago, and now you got to fix it. It is a thing. And so I feel like there's so many terms, like you said, that have just been mutated into something
Mhm.
that's romantic, but also toxic positivity.
Mm,
I cannot tell you how many people are like, you're negative. And I'm like, I'm honest. I'm so sorry that that actually came up for those watching side tangent number one. Um, when I was filming season 9 of The Blocks, there was me, psychic spiritual advisor, fabulous. And there was someone on the show who was like a very good entrepreneur, but he was all about empowerment and yay, Jesus, which is fine. It's just not me. And I had such a bad day. I
mm.
performed horribly on a competition that's televised.
Oh,
I felt horrible. I biffed it hard and I felt bad. And he pulls me aside while I am having my legitimate feels because I'm not going to stop having feelings because other people are around. I'm going to process now so that my suffering doesn't happen later. I'll feel pain now. And he was like, you need to stop being so hard on yourself. I'm not being hard on myself. I did poorly. Negativity damages you on a cellular level. You are killing your own cells by behaving this way. And I was like, I'm not going to stop having my feelings, even if they are uncomfortable, because you're in the room. But fair warning, mine are messy. You may want to take a step back. I want to spray you with this real emotion. It was so, and like having it in my face was just so, because we all see it like online all the time and then at conventions, but to have it in that setting, I was taken aback. Like, I was like, you toxic positive twat. Like, there's no space for you in my life.
yeah.
That you I'm elated that you're successful and that you found the path for you. Get out of my way. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. Like you always see, right? How many shirts are printed out there? Positive vibes only. This is the way it is. And not only that, that if you have feelings of negativity, if you're feeling pain, if you're feeling sadness or grief, then you're technically doing it wrong. And
mhm,
that's like, no, that's actually means I'm doing it right. And I always have
mhm,
to remind people that we as a soul chose this human school to grow and to evolve in order to evolve means that I have to feel these emotions. And one of the biggest things that I do often is hold that space to tell people you're safe in feeling that, because
mhm,
society has told us otherwise. Society has told us these feelings, these emotions, right? There's high emotions, there's low
mhm,
emotions. And I'm like, that's all BS. That's all
mhm.
BS, because my anger or my frustration or my sadness is, or the way I want to look at it, is all about creating awareness within myself
Mhm.
so that I can grow and evolve, not so I can hide or ignore, which we do time after time after time. And I
Yes.
say that even in the sense, this came up recently. I said, let's talk about the manifesting part, right? Where you're like, I'm going to manifest. So I'm going to create these great positive vibes and I'm going to focus all this positive energy towards manifestation. But I tell people, beware of what you manifest, because when you truly choose to manifest, you are choosing to grow. Means
Mhm.
that anything that's not in alignment with what you're calling in is going to be shown to you. So if there's aspects of yourself that you need to work on, guess what? That's going to come up before those quote positive vibes come in.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
have to learn how to embrace that, like yin and yang, like we are dark, we are light,
Mhm.
but neither one is good or bad. It just is. And it's the
Yeah.
acceptance of that.
It's you bring up a good point, like we are human. I am more, instead of like positivity only and that's the only thing that can manifest, I'm a big believer in traditional Chinese medicine,
Mhm.
they teach you are a human with a human experience, and therefore to honor this experience you need the full spectrum of human emotion. And no emotion is bad. You need to understand what emotion is to you and what each one does for you. Because let me tell you what, you want to know what I have gotten absolutely the most done with? What emotion? It was not happiness. It was not love. It was not positivity. Anger.
Mhm.
Anger gets shit done. And here's what I mean by that. I have been in like abusive situations. Do you want light and positivity? No, being so pissed that you punch back saved my life.
Mhm.
That did, but that was so negative. No, that was empowerment. That was me going, I deserve better. Let me show you. So it's like when you have emotions, they all have a purpose. As long as you use the purpose, it's fine. But it's when people choose to be like, no, I'm going to use anger and be destructive. I'm like, no, do anger and use it to like motivate you to do something. There, I rage cleaned my house recently. You can eat off my floor. I'm okay with it. I'm sitting here going, look what I created out of a negative text message. Because
I did
that's
that
what it was. It was a negative text message that I did not want at that moment. And I was like, what can I do with this? And I'm like, ooh, I can vacuum every inch of my house. I can dust. I can, and I did, and it was cathartic and beautiful, and I loved it. And now I have a clean house, and I messaged that person back after my house was clean, and I feel fine. So I think that that's a big one. What is one, like we've talked about several, what's one that you come across most often? Which myth or misinformation?
I mean, besides the twin flame and toxic positivity, because I was going to say those two, because I was like thinking, I was like, well, toxic positivity is number one,
Mhm.
and twin flame and soulmates are number two. Um, Karma was one recently that came up yesterday.
Ooh, okay. Go into it. Tell me more. Tell me more.
It's really interesting, like we talked earlier, how you were saying there's all these people out there that don't have the proper training, or they're just, I
Mhm.
don't know where they're getting their information from. Like, I really just don't know. And I think right now one of the biggest things is like everybody has, I'm trying not to go into full channel mode. That's why I'm slowing myself down right now.
Mhm.
Everybody has this belief that like, how do you guys want to, I'm asking the guys, how do they want to say it? It's in the sense that like you are constantly like the karma and your past life. So the way that you come in, right? We do come in with karma. We do come in with that
Yeah.
sense. But somebody recently was saying, like, even the sense of one, we don't come in, you don't evolve anymore if you don't have karma. And two, if you don't have kids, this was a big one that's been coming up. If you choose not to have kids in this lifetime, that's your last lifetime because you're choosing not to, you're choosing no karma. It's
I
come up
have
multiple times.
I have so many comments for that
And I
person.
was just like, explain this to me. I'm like, please, like, explain where this belief system came from, because we evolve as a soul depending on our own life lessons, not
Mhm.
dependent on somebody else's life lessons. And me having kids or not having kids doesn't matter to the karma that I come in with. And if I evolve out of soul, which I've seen this, I can come in with no karma if I've done my soul's work. Now, not
Yeah.
many people like that even exist,
Yeah.
but it can be something that's
Mhm.
created. And it's the understanding of karma, and also the understanding that every toxic relationship that you have has to be a karmic situation.
Oh, everything has to be deeper
Right? So
than
you're
what
in
it is.
this, right? You're in, oh, that's a karmic relationship. That's
Mhm.
why I'm in this. No, honey, you're in this because you're choosing a toxic cycle over and over because of the karmic situation. Everything
Mhm.
always is like, well, that's karma. No, that's not
Yep.
karma. It's not always karma. You are human being an
Yeah.
idiot that's choosing a certain choice, and you need to make a different
Mhm.
one.
Yeah, and it's the you bring up a really important point about like your specialty is empowerment. when people, I almost feel like people are taking away their responsibility and accountability
Yes.
because they're like scared of consequences or whatever. They're like, I don't like this whenever it's, I can't help but cheat. I'm a Gemini. And I'm like, yeah, you can keep your knees shut. It's easy.
Right.
Flex the legs, keep your knees shut. It's fine. But it's also, oh, you're going to love this. I met someone and they're super duper into astrology. And so they are with their husband and they have said this publicly. They are someone like in our industry. They have said this publicly. So the reason why I treat my husband this way in this life is because he has a karmic debt to me. I saw it in our astrology charts. And so he didn't treat me well in a past life. So now we're married and now he has to like serve me for our entire marriage
No.
so that, and he's making it up to me. So this is fine. And I'm sitting there going like,
Have you ever thought that you needed to learn balance and love and things in your own life? Oh my gosh.
and I fully understand like karmic debt. I fully get that you have people in your past lives that may come up again like a bad penny. And sometimes you just got to yeet them out of your existence.
Right.
Totally. All of that. Yes. And could you imagine? I could not imagine
No.
dating, being friends with, certainly not looking at someone in marriage and saying, because of a past life, because I read it in my chart, you will serve me.
Yeah.
I could, like, if someone said that to you, I think I'd spit in their face.
I would run.
I don't.
I would probably say something really not nice and I'd probably take off. But it's like, that is the most ridiculous thing. And that's what we're talking about, is that karma does not give you an excuse to either treat people, stay in bad relationships, or do things. No.
Yeah.
You are, as a human, you have to make choices. You make choices every day. And you don't get the right to treat people like crap because in some random past life that you visually saw, they treated you like crap. Absolutely not. That's not your soul evolving. That's your soul choosing to stay an idiot. Sorry. Not sorry.
Sorry, but real. And I think it brings up, the empowerment, and certain things influence you and you can choose to or deny or go with the flow or whatever. Like, I am a Cancer. I have the hiccups. And so I fully am the domestic goddess. My house is everything. My home is where the heart is. I'm an introvert in my home. I do not like having company. And the thing is, it's like that to me isn't a toxic thing. It's healthy boundaries because my business is so public and everything I do outside my house is very public. And so it's like, yep, this is my little shell. And so it's like that influences that. And then I leaned into it and I'm like, yep, this is a form of self-care. I feel good about this. But when people lean into like Leos who but I'm a Leo and I feel better when I'm always right. So I need to push you around until I'm right. And it's like, that's not how it works. Like, your influences that you're choosing to go with should in no way negatively affect somebody else. Like, if, again, the Gemini with the cheating and stuff, it's like, no, that's not. And people just have to be okay with it because it's just you. No. I was born on a Saturday after a full moon, which means that I get to have the last piece of pie. No, it doesn't move.
Yeah. We have to take responsibility for our actions and the roles that we assign or that we've been assigned, right? So like saying like astrology, for example, like if you're saying that's my sign, you can either choose to accept that or not accept that role, but you need to take responsibility for your actions and the way that you show up in the world. And that means that you're going to have to lean into yourself. That means that you're going to have to listen to yourself. You're going to acknowledge yourself and you're going to have to look at all the ugly parts that you've called ugly. And you're going to have to pull those up and acknowledge them.
Yeah. And you can use everything in a positive way,
right?
Constructive way, like the anger. It motivates me to get stuff done. You can also look at things in a toxic way, in a negative way, so it's like nothing is good or bad. You can make it good or bad. All these influences that people say they have no control over. It's like, yes, you do. I don't like when people go into like Mercury retrograde thinking the world's on fire. And it's like, you are a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I don't want to, like, it literally almost like a horrible car accident because of it. Because the person next to me, I was driving a giant SUV that I was not used to driving in Minneapolis, which you do not know this, but Minneapolis is not a big car friendly place, let
Mm.
alone a big SUV place. And so I was trying to like inch back and forth out of a spot, and she is screaming, screaming, "Oh my God, you're going to crash. I can't believe this. Oh my God, it's Mercury retrograde. You're going to total your car." And she is screaming this as I'm trying to get out of a busy parking spot and then go into traffic. And we almost got in a huge accident because of that. If she wasn't screaming and just like sat there on her phone, I could have navigated that fine. I'm like, and then when we just barely missed the accident, she's like, "Oh my God, Mercury retrograde." And I'm like, "It's you. It's you."
I can't believe that happened.
I almost, if it wasn't Minnesota winter, I would have made her walk. I would have kicked her out of the car if it wasn't 0 degrees out. I was so upset. I do not do well with
No.
self-fulfilling prophecies. I do not do well with that. So that's like myths and how we deal with them. So the way that I deal with myths is one, like, not all the time, because let's be honest, we have lives.
Right.
But as often as possible, especially with clients who are committed to getting better, you meet myths head on. You correct people with gentle, curiosity and honesty and everything. I think the way, for me, the way that I deal with myths for myself, because how do you know if it's true or not,
Right.
is you do that internal, does this resonate with me? But
Mhm.
then you also do research. Like,
Right.
and not ask Google research, like actually in-depth research. Go to your local occult store, read metaphysical books, ask your local professionals, your local experts and stuff, cuz there's so much misinformation out there that's the way that I combat it. It's like, check in with myself and then research and ask an expert, because you're not, sadly, the vast majority of the time, you're not going to find it on TikTok.
Mm-mm.
And how do you know if that's true or not?
Right.
What's on there? Like, I did, side tangent number 2. I did pelvic floor therapy after abuse, and I learned about it on TikTok. There was this woman who did it, and I was watching her things, and I'm like, I have that. What? And so I was watching her videos, but then you want to know what I did? I went and I scheduled an appointment with a specialist. And I said, "Here's the name of the person. Here's what I am learning here." And she was like, "Yes, that is real. You can continue watching that creator. Everything is fine. But now you have me as your medical practitioner. Here's what we're going to do in appointments." And that was like, I loved that. That is like, and that's something that's not metaphysical. That's like your physical body. I was like, I watched it and I'm like, this does resonate with me. Now I'm going to ask an expert. It's like, do I have
Definitely.
a problem?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that TikTok or Google should be our book of that we should follow. Like I'm like, I don't. And not everything that's coming up there. I mean, there are some great people out there, but not everything is right. And I think that you have to really sit in with something if it resonates with you or not. And
Mhm.
just because there's panic or fear, I mean, there's so many fear theories out there and there's so many myths out there that they talk about, or some of it's not myths. Mercury retrograde's not a myth, but it's also something that people build fears around, or the
Sensationalized.
anxiety. Yeah, it's anxiety around, right? Full moons, like just different things. And it's like sometimes these things are going to resonate with you and sometimes they're not. And the most important person that you need to listen to is yourself. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's the one that we most least
Mhm.
likely connect with is ourselves. And so it's like, if you're like, is this a myth? Does this feel right? Those are things that you're gonna have to ask yourself. Does this feel right to me? Does this feel like this is correct for me? Do I resonate with this? And not resonate it because it's fear or resonating because of these things,
Mhm.
but just honestly, does it resonate? And like you said, do research, go learn about it, right? Like I was talking today to somebody about, I just had my birth chart read and I was telling her about something and she was like, well, and she said it great.
Mhm.
She's like a student of mine, but she said it perfectly. And she's like, astrology though is just, it's not a yes or no. It's not a confirmation this is exactly going to happen. It's kind of just like Well, here's your planetary alignments, and it could possibly occur in this manner. But
Yeah.
again, not a for sure. And on November 8th at this time, this is going to happen, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's not, nothing we do is black and white. And I
Yes.
think that's another myth. Nothing we do is black and white. So the other side of myths is appropriation, specifically cultural appropriation.
Mhm.
All right, everyone, get ready to be offended. Because we're gonna be honest about it.
Yeah,
What
that's a big
is,
one.
yeah, and it offends so many. So what's the biggest hurdle you have found with cultural appropriation?
It's the choosing. It's I'm going to take this culture and I'm going to take these beliefs, I'm going to merge them into one, and I'm going to take out maybe the gritty center.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to make it so that I can follow it and it's an easy thing for me to do. I'm going
Yep.
to use it as something that's going to make me feel good or better about myself rather than the deep understanding of the actual work and what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest things I've had where people take different cultures and try to merge them as to one.
Yep. And I think for a huge hurdle is convenience.
Yeah.
It's people just see cultural appropriation as like, well, it's there, or the everyone is doing it, so it's okay. And it's like neither of those are true or real. It's like cultural appropriation is wrong. And the big ones that I see, so I am pagan, and so a lot of people will put on like pagan makeup and they'll put chin marks. So this is not Norse. This is not Viking. This is actually very, very specific cultures that do the chin tattoo and everything like
Mhm.
that, or do.
Yeah, they
So
do.
whenever I see people like dressed up like that in like Norse, and they're like, "I am a true Viking," or "I study the old gods," I'm like, "No, we didn't look like that. Sorry."
Yeah, I don't
Um,
think that you have like that's the other part too, right? Like regardless if we're talking about those aspects, it's like, you go on and you see people dressed up and they look a certain way and they got the crystals
mhm,
on their forehead and they're wearing the certain gowns and it's just like,
mhm,
no, you don't need to look like that. And it sucks because honestly, I don't look like that. And that's probably why half the time people are like, oh, ignore that. That's not sellable. But it's
yep,
like, those are those things and not only that are the titles. That's
mhm,
the other thing of everybody's a shaman. Everybody is a shaman. And that drives
mhm.
me crazy as somebody that has been trained in that. I won't even say that. I won't even
Yeah,
call
oh yeah,
myself that because
no,
it's like everybody's a shaman or everyone's some kind of master or everybody's some kind of they have these titles that when you understand the discipline that it takes that there's
mhm.
there's no way, oh, you got a certification online?
Yeah,
Like,
you did a 1-day class. You did a 1-day intensive. The one that I don't like specifically with like my culture and like my religious beliefs is high priestess or high priest, coven
mm,
master, anything like that. I'm like, no, that takes. I have a colleague who showed a level of discipline that I genuinely cannot fathom. So she and I do not remember what discipline she did, like what modality, but she had to wear white every single day for more than a year. She had to have her head covered in a white scarf every single day for more than a year.
mhm.
She watched what she ate. She had to eat almost all white food. And
Oh,
this was
wow.
like a spiritual practice. This was an initiation into becoming, like a real shaman or a real high priestess or whatever. And again, I'm so sorry, I do not remember the modality, but and she had to be very mindful with even how she moved her body for an entire year. I can't do that for a day. I'm half aware of where my leg is right now. And those are the things where it's like it is serious. And anyone who does, oh, I did it in a weekend, I'm like, did you now?
Did you did you now?
Did you now? What
Yeah.
did you learn? Oh, it was transforming. And I'm not saying you cannot have transformation in a weekend. I am saying that you cannot become an expert or initiate yourself into a higher level of consciousness in one weekend and then help others do it too. Like so many of these practices are lifelong practices or several year practices before you become trained in that. So I always find that very difficult. The difference I want to talk what and I'm saying this because someone gave the best, I don't know if you've heard this one with cultural appropriation. The best example I've ever heard is appreciation versus appropriation. The perfect example, Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. Have you seen that movie?
It's been a while.
So there's Halloween Town and Christmas Town and Easter Town and all those realms. And Halloween is all Halloween. And then Jack is bored and he goes to Christmas Town and he's like, oh my God, what's this? What's this? But then he takes it, brings it back to Halloween Town. And he's like, and this is what we're making. And now I am Jack-O-Claus. And you remember they go back and they're giving kids heads and snakes and he ruins everything. And that's appropriation. Like you went and you took it and you made it into something that you thought was good.
Exactly.
That is not what it was meant for. And now no one who actually uses it is happy. And I think of cultural appropriation like that's versus appreciation does nothing to diminish or influence or alter what the original is. And it's done with respect and knowledge.
There you go.
That is how I see it, where appropriation, it's like you are taking this and using it outside of its initial purpose. You doofus. And I didn't like when I worked at a metaphysical center, they said, well, we have to start selling different herbs and using different things because it's become so new age to use. I'll use white sage as an example. It's become so new age that now Whole Foods is selling it, that they have over harvested the crop. And now the indigenous people who use it for their actual rituals don't have the access to it that they need. But by golly, Karen at Whole Foods is going to buy 3 for 1.
3.
I'm just like, so that's how I see it. So that's like, it's a really big hurdle. And how do you specifically fight cultural appropriation? Like,
I tell people that if you feel like you're being called to something, right? Like yoga is a big one. Yoga is a huge one. Like right now I just wrote a paper. I had to write a paper about yoga. I'm still actually finishing it, and that where it originated and how it's been appropriated into, like, there's yoga studios everywhere. But if you really go back to the history of yoga, and to be a yogi was a huge lifestyle and was a huge way of living, that many Hindu people did not choose that lifestyle or that discipline. And then here we are, everybody's a yogi because you go once a week, So I think the biggest way I say is that I know I'm going to say this, and half the people never going to do this, but read up on it. Do your research before you step into a modality or before you step into certain medicine. Really go deep and understand it before you try to give yourself a title. And respect it. The biggest thing is respect it. And you may find that maybe certain parts of it you vibe with, but maybe certain parts you don't. And well, you know what? Then you can't just pick and choose what you vibe with or don't. It is a way of living, and have respect for it. Have respect for it. Find what works. You can't just take because everyone else is, or everybody's, feeling good about this, and it's a way of doing it. So I have to always tell people, like, do the research, do the discipline, see what it is. It's not a freaking McDonald's menu where I'll take, item 2 and item 3. It doesn't work like that. And so I always have to, like, I educate people often when I do a lot of talks or on the podcast that I have, like, in the sense of letting people know these are the histories. This is why people feel a certain way. This is where it came from. These are things that we have to acknowledge and bring up and not ignore. And a lot of these things that are being appropriated, honestly, there's been, like we talked about, dark and light. There's been a lot of pain. There's been a lot of suffering in order to build these practices and medicines. And all you want to do at the end of the day is take the good light because that's what makes you feel great. It doesn't work like that. If that's
not the ice cream and sprinkles, you do not want the broccoli. You need to have the broccoli too.
Yeah. And it's like, so I think the biggest thing is just, like, do your research and honor it. Honor it. Just because everyone's doing it does not mean it's meant for you. It doesn't. And it does. Like, you made a really good point, because those that maybe have done the work, have done the discipline, there's people that we don't even like to call ourselves titles or things, right? So, like, for one, I do a lot of curandera work. I do a lot of curandera work.
Mhm.
And I will not call myself a curandera because I haven't put the discipline in it, but
Yeah.
I'm starting to. I
Yeah.
found a mentor. I'm starting to do the work. And that's
Mhm.
going to take a long time, you
Yes.
know? But that's one of the things for myself. It'd be like, oh, well, this is what you are. If people tell me this
Mhm.
is what you are, is what you do. And I'm like, yeah, but I won't give myself that title because I haven't even myself done the work.
Yes. Yes. And it's about doing the work. It's also, I think, the biggest thing that I tell people about cultural appropriation is how truly offensive can you be? And they're like, "Oh, to that other culture?" I'm like, "No, to yourself, to your soul. You have heritage, you have ancestors, you have culture, but you're saying that that sucks. That your ancestors weren't good enough. You can't tap into their knowledge. You got to tap into this other person's knowledge." And they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Yeah, you see how
Yeah.
shitty you
That's
sound
so
now?"
great to say it like that. That's
And
so great.
I don't know if you can tell, but I am paler than milk. I am Irish. I am Irish, Irish. And so
Mm,
I do Celtic paganism
that makes sense.
because it's awesome and it's my ancestors and it's my ancestral knowledge. And so there are so many cultures, almost, I don't want to say almost all,
Oh,
that's a generalization, but most are not eclectic, are not pick and choose, are not a cafeteria or a
yeah.
buffet. Most are all or nothing, and everyone's treating them like you said, like they can pick and choose. And if you are a picker and a chooser, then you need to do things that you can pick and choose and not these things that are all or nothing, you
Yeah.
know? So
You
I
bring
think
such a good point up where, like, my ancestors are not your ancestors.
mhm,
So stop trying to make them be your ancestors, you know? I
yep.
mean, stop doing what you are, like, what is it recently? Dia de los Muertos. We just had Dia de los Muertos. Talk about appropriating. I mean, everybody's celebrating it, right? Like, you
Mhm,
got all people dressing up, you have people doing that. But again, understanding the ancestral work, understanding what that means, understanding
yep.
what it means to create an altar, understanding what it means to call them in, understanding what that does for our heritage and
Mhm,
who we are. It's huge, but you have thousands of people out there, streaming Coco and creating their stuff. And it's like, but again, my ancestors are not your ancestors. And there's many times in this work, and I'm sure for you,
mhm,
that I work a lot with helping people reconnect to their ancestors. And let me tell you,
mhm.
just because I help them reconnect to their ancestors does not mean I have the right to see their ancestors.
No.
There's times where I am like, I cannot connect. I can help you connect, but
Mhm.
it's not for me. Those
No.
ancestors are yours. Those are your messages. Those are your guides. And that's where I have to pull back in it. There's people that, like you said, you do, you're pagan and you celebrate
Mhm,
them. Now, for me to go step into either Norse or doing that, that would be
mhm.
weird. Like, that would be something that's like, those aren't my ancestors. Those aren't my people. But
Yeah.
everybody wants to call on their gods.
Mhm,
Goddess Kali.
mhm.
Kali is a huge one, right?
Hecate, the Morrigan. And I love that death is such, it's like they're the dark ones, they're the destroyers, and that's so me. I'm like, honey, you are dandelion fluff. You would be the first to vomit on a battlefield, you wimp. I have so many feels. So you have and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I know that I pronounce it wrong and I'm well aware that that is a shortcoming on my part. But you have the Day of the Dead and that's a thing. So my version of that, my culture's thing is called Samhain. And
Yes.
it is a pagan new year where the veil is thinnest between living and the dead, and we honor our ancestors. We also do a lot of protection against evil spirits, though. And so,
Mhm.
like, that's a huge part of it for us is protection. And I don't know if that's a thing in your culture.
It is, but it's a thing for asking the ancestors for that protection or asking them
Oh.
to bring it in. So we do a lot with our ancestral work with asking them to bring in that
Oh.
protection.
See, and that's so different because in mine we use symbols. We
Mhm.
use that's where the jack-o'-lantern came from. That's where a lot of our symbolism around Halloween comes from being able to protect ourselves from malevolent spirits as they walk between worlds. And so we honor our ancestors. This is also like our new year. And
Mhm.
so it's like a party and everything too. And I sit there and I'm like, I love that you have yours. I love it, but I want mine. Like, I can't imagine. So I could imagine being a spectator, I guess. Like, if I was at several of my friends are Latino, and so if they were doing it at their house and I happened to be there, you know, over
Mhm.
this time, I am more than happy to sit silently and yay. And am I allowed to put a picture up? If I am, I will. If not, I won't. But it's like, I love that you have your culture, but I have mine. Like,
Yeah.
and I love Samhain. I wouldn't trade ours. And I don't think you would either.
No, I
Like,
wouldn't.
I'm attached to mine and you're attached to yours. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's part uh, when you cultural appropriate, you don't get that real connection. You
Mm.
don't get that soul and emotional that you're like, this is something that is mine and it's part of me, not just part of something that I do, but it's actually like
But
part.
what if your past life you were you've heard that one. You have heard that one. In
Well
my
then,
past life, I had a vision and I was this great shaman. So
yeah.
I have the right in this lifetime to do A, B, C, D, and E.
So I will tell you a personal story about that to combat that. I was a monk in a past life, monk, and I was a very serious and devout monk. I was an amazing monk. For all the tea in China, for all the gold in Ireland, I would not worship that
Yeah.
again. So it's like, oh, that was, and I'm like, that was my entire life for a past life. I was raised a monk. It doesn't matter that it was a past life. Who are you now in the present moment and
Right.
honor that? I am not disrespecting your past lives, but that's who you were in a past life. So here is my question. You were a serial killer in a past life. What? How you gonna honor that? What you want to say about that? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Because it's the same thing. It's like, but that was a religion, and it was a part of your past life.
Mhm.
And I teach past life classes, and I always tell people, here's the thing: we were all ugly, we all had jacked up teeth, we all shit in a bucket, and we were all racist, homophobic, xenophobic, and prejudiced. And everyone goes, no, 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 I wasn't. I'm like, it is not now. Back then, that was normal.
Yeah.
Most of our timeline, most of our human earthbound timeline, except for the last 100 years, has been racist, xenophobic, homophobic, prejudice. And so if you were Hitler in your past life, you wouldn't want to bring that back like bell-bottom jeans. So that's how I feel about it. That sorry, tangent, but
No, you're right with everything. I'm like, you chose not to evolve as that again for a reason, not to call it back in. I'm not saying that we can't use those lessons and we can't connect in some way, but at the same
yeah.
time, that doesn't give you the right to project yourself in a certain image or way now. I mean, that's what we're combating in society, I think, in general, all the time.
Yes. And I think before we sign off, one of the things that I want to discuss with everybody is myths, misinformation are rampant. Please do your research. Cultural appropriation is real. Make sure that you're aware of it. You are human. I am human. Isabel is human. And so I guarantee that I have done cultural appropriation. I guarantee that everyone has. It is such an ingrained part of our colonizer world that it's hard not to. And so when you know better, do better. Like
Right.
Maya
That's
Angelou.
such a great way of saying it.
It's a quote from Maya Angelou, and it's
Yeah.
if you mess it up, acknowledge that you messed it up. If you need to apologize, someone apologize, and then just do better. Give yourself grace. You don't need to hate yourself because when you were 5, you dressed up like Pocahontas. Just don't give that outfit to your kid and do better.
Yeah, make a
So,
difference.
yeah, because I feel like this is a place where people who really care and want to do better could really beat themselves up. And that's not the point of this. That's not the point of this episode. That's not the point of your spiritual journey. It's just to do better. And so the more you learn, and like I said, I've done it and I've learned. Like I'm sure there's countless things that I have done, especially throughout being a spiritual advisor and stuff. That when
Mhm.
I first started and I
Oh
was young, I
gosh.
picked the things that I thought were cool.
We all did, though. We all did.
And we all learned them and put them on, and there were chakras everywhere. And not no more. There's not one of them in my house anymore. And there used to be one like full set of banners and crystals and archway candles and everything in every single room of my house. Not anymore, because you learn and you do better.
Right.
And so like you'll notice this, like there's no that side too. There's Celtic knotwork in this house. There's things that are from my Irish heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, yep, those are the things that I keep. So how do you feel about that? Do you like, we're not trying to be hard. We're not trying to be hard on anybody, but we do want you to learn and grow and do better.
Yeah. How do I feel about people just improving or doing better and having the awareness into what they're appropriating?
Yeah, about this whole part of the conversation about the be gentle with yourself, but do better. There's no need
Yeah.
for self-hatred in this.
I think the thing is like, don't, like you said, don't be hard on yourself. Allow yourself to be compassionate with yourself. And even if you were listening to this and you're going like, oh my gosh, I think I've made these mistakes. I think I've jumped on this bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
Don't beat yourself up. Use it to create a change. Use it to create an awareness in yourself that maybe you did jump on the bandwagon and maybe there's something there for you to learn and grow in. I'm not going to say that just because you're not this culture doesn't mean that there's something that you shouldn't study in that. Go study it, go learn it, respect it. But really just allow yourself to do the work and to do the research. Like I said, I mean, I've taken ethnic studies classes. I'm in a religion and culture class right now. I learn different aspects in order to help me understand things. And that stuff is there. That knowledge is there for you guys to look at and not just to, click on because everybody's doing it. But at the end of the day, we're always evolving. We're always growing. And you're always learning. And that's why we have these conversations. And so that people can have that awareness to make a difference and change and to call themselves out on what they've said, what they do, how they handle things, even in the sense of, I don't want to go down it, but even just, the little tendencies that we say, the words namaste or, like different things, like you don't understand what they mean. Why do you say it? So like looking at all of that.
Yeah. And I mean, another one that I learned recently was peanut gallery is racist.
What?
Yeah. It's the peanut gallery is where the people of color used to have to sit.
I didn't know that.
Kind of like the theater version of Back of the Bus.
Oh, wow.
And once I heard that, like now I don't use that term anymore. It's the same reason why we don't say powwow for meeting and stuff. So there are terms that you may not know, but then when you learn, you take them out of your vocabulary, just like namaste. And it's so important. Like there are some quippy things that queer people say, and I feel so bad, but they're quippy. Like during like gay pride and stuff, a lot of people be like, namas gay. The gay in me, acknowledges the gay in you. And I'm like, that is so bad because I know that it's cultural appropriation, but it's so cute, but it's bad, but it's cute. And that doesn't excuse it, but it's like there are things that still make us giggle, even if we don't say them anymore. So yeah, it's all about just being gentle with yourself and always doing the research. So Isabel is a practitioner. I believe you are still taking clients, and you're open to new clients. So can you tell us where on social media or website, what's the easiest way for people to find you?
IsabelHealing.com. That's my website. Go to the website. They have all my services there. You can find me on Instagram, Isabel Franke. It's my name there. And I have a lot of videos and I talk a lot, and that'll connect you to all my other aspects rather than giving you a whole list of everywhere.
I love it. Perfect. I love the one-stop shopping. Like when people ask me, I'm like, just go to the website. It links to everything.
Yeah. Like here you go. Here and here. Those will link you everywhere you need to be to find me, and podcast links, all the different links, blog links. You'll find it all there.
Perfect. I love it. And everyone remember, please like, share, follow if you found this and you resonated with it or you would like to see more of it. Please drop in the comments, how you're combating myths, or what's your favorite or least favorite myth that you are working with. We would love to hear it. If you have questions, comments, concerns about the podcast or anything, go to this website, and you can message me directly from there, and we will get you sorted. And also, if you cannot find Isabel, you can also message me, and I will happily hook you up. It makes me elated to be a matchmaker with people. Be like, you are wonderful, make wonderful together. It is fabulous. So thank you so much for coming, for being a part of this, for spending so much time with me. I talk a lot.
I loved it. I loved it.
It is fabulous. I hope you have a great day. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And any final words, Isabel?
No, I think just like we said it over and over, be gentle on yourself and do your research.
I love it. Don't forget to be the hero of your own story, everybody.
There you go.
Bye.
Bye.